I'm looking at the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler, right? What's going on with Jimmy Butler?
If you're not on the court playing against Boston or on the court playing against the New York Knicks, you should keep your mouth shut.
War has already ensued between Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat, and things have become very, very awkward between the two, both in the media and behind closed doors, which is leading to a lot of fans wondering what is Jimmy Butler's future in Miami looking like, especially because there's a plethora of teams that'd be very interested in his services. So before we get to the content, we're giving away copies of NBA 2K25. All you have to do to be entered is subscribe and turn on our notifications on this channel. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. If you follow me on Instagram at TheFlightmike and followed my Friday night picks for prize picks, then you made yourself some money. Unfortunately, I didn't get as lucky with the free square, but luckily for us, we're getting another free square for week 2. And once again, it's with Caleb Williams. All Caleb Williams needs is one passing yard versus the Houston Texans for his square to hit. We just gotta pair this with something that we believe is guaranteed and we'll automatically make ourselves some money. I'm gonna post my Caleb Williams pick onto my Instagram story when a new board comes out. And guys, use my promo code microphone to get a free $50 when you play a game of $5 or more. You don't even need to win to get the $50. It's guaranteed. This game's really fun, especially if you're good at projecting how players are going to do. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? With just one more year guaranteed on his current contract, Jimmy Butler has officially started playing politics with Pat Riley in the Miami Heat. A 6-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, and 5-time All-Defensive Team player, despite leading the Miami Heat to the finals twice in a 4-year span during the post-Big 3 Heat era, for whatever reason, just doesn't seem to be getting the same type of love from Pat Riley that he has gotten from the city of Miami. And although he has been righteously dubbed Playoff Jimmy for his historic playoff performances in recent years, all of that kind of came to a somewhat abrupt halt this last year when Jimmy Butler suffered an MCL injury, which forced him out of their first-round series against the champion Boston Celtics, which they went on to lose in just 5 games. Humorously enough, and in typical Jimmy Butler fashion, he has since stated his beliefs, saying that if he had played, then the Heat would have beaten the Celtics. But regardless of how likely untrue that is, both he and the team he has spent the last 5 seasons playing for now find themselves in a bit of a dilemma. And despite the relative ambiguity surrounding the present and future market for him right now, there are undoubtedly a lot of teams that would be interested in at least making a call to Miami in order to learn more. And as crazy as I know it sounds, there's actually one team in the West that had just a fair bit of success recently, and who also as an organization are in a somewhat similar twilight position as Jimmy Butler. At this point, it's been reported that the Golden State Warriors have made some calls to Miami, being that the Klay Thompson era is over for the Dubs after he decided to take his talents to Dallas, as well as their waiving of Chris Paul before his $30 million guarantee kicked in. The Warriors are in a position to see just what it would take to bring in Jimmy Butler, with the hopes that he could give them another shot at bringing one last title to the Bay. Given that the 2024-25 season is the final guaranteed season of Jimmy's current deal, the recent word is that Miami Heat president and overall NBA godfather Pat Riley is not yet going to sign Jimmy to the max deal that he is seeking. And Jimmy Butler is answering back by foregoing his ability to sign his player option next season, after collecting his almost $50 million this season. Unless he gets traded before or during this season, then there is a good chance that he is going to be a free agent by the time next offseason comes rolling around. Now, for those of us out there that want to continue to see Jimmy Butler suiting up for Miami, maybe we should start taking note of just exactly what Riley has been able to achieve in order to understand why he would be willing to hurt the fan base and let their favorite player go. After all, you don't go to the NBA Finals 19 times in 3 different positions by accident. My bet is that Pat Riley's more focused on the future of this organization and simply isn't a firm believer favor in his team's chances to legitimately compete this year with or without Jimmy. Perhaps that's why they didn't wind up with Paul George or Trae Young or any of the other potential splash free agents. Coupled with the fact that not only is Jimmy Butler seeking an outrageous 2-year, $113 million max extension, it can't help his case in the eyes of Riley that Butler is going to turn 36 before the start of the 2025-26 season. And even on top of that, we can't just forget the energy and dynamics between the two men that goes back to Miami's defeat at the hands of Boston. Remember when Pat Riley straight up called out Jimmy Butler for his claim that the Heat would win if he was playing?
Is that Jimmy trolling or is that Jimmy serious? You know, if you're not on the court playing against Boston or on the court playing against the New York Knicks, you should keep your mouth shut and your criticism of those teams.
Now, in truth, I think I speak for most of us when I say that we actually like Jimmy Butler's trolling nature for the most part because he's actually one of the funniest stars in the league. I mean, he's the only emo player I can ever remember seeing play in the league, let alone being an all-star. Sadly enough for Heat Nation, it's beginning to seem like with each passing day that Butler may end up taking both his humor and his basketball skills elsewhere sooner than many have hoped. Because aside from the Golden State Warriors, there's also rumors out there that Jimmy Butler could have his eyes set on another Eastern Conference team, and one that many might be shocked to find out, seeing as they are currently a long way from even considering contending, and pretty much the exact opposite of the Golden State Warriors. The team that I'm talking about is the Brooklyn Nets. And if you were to ask Jimmy himself, he appears to actually really like the idea of heading to Brooklyn, which has struck people as somewhat strange for a superstar already headed towards the twilight of his career. The idea of him going to such a lowly team at his age is definitely odd if you only look at it from a surface level. After all, since trading away 20+ points per game scorer Mikal Bridges to the Knicks, the Nets entered full rebuild mode, with the biggest names on their roster being Cam Thomas, Dennis Schroeder, and Ben Simmons. Obviously, there's Cameron Johnson, there's Dorian Finney-Smith, but this team isn't exactly a world beater. With all that said, we have to remember who we're dealing with here. This isn't Kevin Durant, LeBron James, James Harden, or any of the plethora of players responsible for creating the failing culture of the NBA super team. No, this is Jimmy Butler, the guy who stood out from the rest of the superstars by choosing to see how far he could make it without becoming a ring chaser. He's also the guy who, despite becoming a famous millionaire, began selling $20 cups of coffee at the NBA bubble in order to make some more pocket change. Yeah, Jimmy Buckets just seems to operate on a different set of values than most other NBA players, and this actually lends us some insight into why he would want to join the Brooklyn Nets, because if you didn't know it already, Brooklyn is set up better than any other team in the league for the 2025 offseason. Not only do they currently have 4 first-round picks in the 2025 draft alone, but they're also projected to have at minimum $50 million and potentially $70 million or more in cap space for the 2025 season. But you may be wondering, what exactly does all of this mean? Well, in a perfect world for Nets fans, they would tank and wind up with the #1 overall pick so they can draft Cooper Flagg. If they did that, they could bring in a star like Butler to play alongside Flagg while he gets his feet under him in the NBA. And then by the time Butler leaves after 2 years, Flagg would be in a position to carry the franchise by himself and play alongside the other young talent that has grown alongside him. Yet even after considering this potential trajectory, there's still another reason that Butler could make his way up to the East Coast in New York. And guys, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but this is what the report states, so try not to laugh too hard. But the word is that Jimmy Butler's connection with Ben Simmons has a lot to do with his desire to potentially switch teams. I know, it's insane. I get it. I don't know why anyone would want to team up with a player that is averaging single digits in points per game, is a shell of his former self, and is eating a chunk of that team's salary cap. But the relationship between the two, of course, goes back to the 2018 to 2019 season when they shared the court for the 76ers during Butler's measly 55 games in a Sixers uniform, which came to an end when they were knocked out of the playoffs in devastating fashion in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semis, when Kawhi Leonard hit what is undoubtedly one of the greatest shots in NBA history, and also made Joel Embiid cry, of course. But what makes this possible Butler-Simmons reunion legitimately kind of funny is that if we remember, Jimmy Butler was actually somewhat adamant about his belief that Ben Simmons didn't have the mental makeup necessary to be a good competitor, which means that we have to dig deeper and see that the key part about the whole Ben Simmons reunion angle, at least to me, is that Jimmy Butler simply just wants to receive some of the same financial treatment that Simmons' agent Bernie Lee and his client have so graciously received from the Nets. If this doesn't make a lot of sense to you, then, well, take a look at this clip.
Jimmy Butler's interest in the Brooklyn Nets is very, very real.
We've heard Jimmy Butler's name surface. Kind of a strange time for this to be happening. What are your thoughts on that? Is there anything you could tell us?
It's very real. It's very real. I can't get into details for a number of reasons, but Jimmy Butler's interest in the Brooklyn Nets is very, very real. Part of it is New York. Part of it is that that Bernie Lee, who is Ben Simmons' agent, is very happy with the way his client has been dealt with by the Nets. Those are two things that I can talk about. I have no idea at this point how the Nets feel about it. It would seem that, considering the way the roster looks, considering the way the cap space looks, considering the way the draft stash looks, that they wouldn't be interested.
Now, with all this out of the way, and with Jimmy likely not being gone until next year, unless something were wildly done before the trade deadline this season, where does that leave the Heat for this coming season? And could it actually be that Pat Riley is simply going to make Jimmy Butler prove himself once more in order to receive the type of final contract money he wants Miami to give him? I wouldn't put it past Riley to be calling Butler's potential bluff here and see if he can finally get them over the hump. And who knows, perhaps with a lot of their core returning, they could make some noise. Bam Adebayo is going to have sky-high confidence after his outstanding performance in the Olympics, and Chaim Hawkins Jr. is going to be going into his second year after finishing 4th in Rookie of the Year voting. It will be very interesting to see how it plays out, and if we could happen to find ourselves with just one more Miami-Boston playoff matchup, but with a healthy Jimmy Butler. Not that I think that the Heat would win, especially considering how Team USA just treated Jason Tatum and didn't even bother inviting Jaylen Brown, but it would make for must-see TV, being that Jimmy Butler has somewhat of a rivalry going with Beantown now. What's really interesting about this is that it actually pits different motivations against each other. Will he go to Brooklyn and chase the bag? Will he go out west and join the Warriors and try to add a ring to his long list of accomplishments? In a case where he wants to go to the Warriors, will the Golden State Warriors part with Jonathan Kuminga to get him, or will the Warriors part with one of their unprotected future first-round picks that they were willing to trade to get Paul George back? Will he wind up staying in Miami, or will he wind up staying in the place that he has made his home and ball out like never before in order to show Pat Riley that he deserves that 2-year contract he's seeking? I don't know about you, but either way, I expect Jimmy Butler to have another all-NBA type season, no matter where he ends up. He seems like a guy that should retire in Miami, so that when he finally does, that's the team we most remember him playing for. But if I'm being honest, I kind of want to see him in Golden State. I would like to see how he would work out with Steph Curry, Buddy Hield, and most importantly, I want to see him and Draymond Green in the same locker room, because I feel like that would just be very entertaining. I think we could all agree that the Dubs would instantly be catapulted near the top of the Western Conference and would have to become a legitimate favorite to make it back to the finals. I think the Warriors could provide ample value in return for Jimmy Butler as well. I want to get what you guys think in the comment section down below. Is this the end of Jimmy Butler in Miami, or do you think this is a smokescreen to get as much money as possible? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.